Welcome to Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guest, you've seen him here before, is Professor Mohammad Marandi. He's a professor at the University of Tehran. Welcome back, Professor Marandi.
Hi, Sabrina. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure.
So I know that we are speaking during terrible times in Iran. So thank you so much for making the time to come on. Since the assassination of Khamenei, there have been a number of questions about what is next for Iran's regime. I saw a statement from Donald Trump recently that basically alluded to the fact that he will not accept the Iranian people choosing their own leader. Like, obviously, he and the rest of the West, that they want to be a part of this, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. What is happening now that Khamenei has been assassinated? I saw hundreds and thousands of people out in the streets to mourn his assassination. Of course, corporate media is not showing that part of things that are happening there. But how is it looking in regards to who is going to now step in?
Well, I think the fact that Trump wants to have control over Iran is no surprise. If you've watched the U.S. Secretary of State's speech in Davos, he praised 500 years of colonization and empire and expressed sorrow with regards to decolonization after the Second World War and the rise of the global majority. And he was saying that the United States effectively is going to recolonize the world. And all those people at Davos and the European leaders clapped like seals for him. So this is, there's no surprise. But we should remember that during the 12-day war, Trump on day 7, I think, he posted unconditional surrender. And 1 or 2 days later, the Israelis began to beg him for a ceasefire. And by day 12, we had a halt to the hostilities. So 5 days or so after he demanded unconditional surrender, he had to accept defeat. In this case, I have no doubt that the Trump regime is going to face defeat. Iran is going to impose a strategic defeat on Trump, and the Epstein class that governs the United States. Now, with regards to Ayatollah Khamenei, his martyrdom has actually strengthened Iran, done the opposite of what they intended. Sabrina, literally, millions of people just in Tehran, other cities aside, and people can see the clips if they go to Iranian news agencies like the Fars news agency, their Telegram channel. I've put some of these images in my own Telegram channel, but basically in Tehran the first 2 nights. Across the country, you have millions of people, tens of millions of people gathering on the streets every night under missile fire. And in Tehran, you have them gathering in 20 or so different places for security reasons. And in huge numbers. Even though a lot of people have left Tehran because the government has encouraged people who don't have anything, they have left. So when I go out, there's much. But across Tehran, people gather in huge numbers under missile fire. And in some of the clips that I show, you can see the surface-to-air defenses working and people holding their ground, men and women. It's amazing. I've never seen. And of course, the Western media ignores it completely. It's as if it's not happening. Why? Because it doesn't serve the narrative. It doesn't, because they are slaughtering Iranians, they're slaughtering children, they're slaughtering elementary school children and girls in order to save them. And these images of school children being massacred and millions of people across the country going to the streets under missile fire is, it shatters the narrative. And so since Western media is owned by oligarchs, just like the regime itself is, none of us should expect anything different. But so Trump demanded people come to the streets, and they did, but for the opposite reason that he was calling for. Now, the Constitution is very clear. And I should point out that Ayatollah Khamenei was murdered in his office, which is beside his home. And the reason is because he refused to leave. They had been trying to convince him for many months, including the previous war, to leave his home and to be taken to a safe place. And he said that many people are struggling and they have nowhere to go. And so I'm not going anywhere. Now compare that to these Western leaders and any other leader. I mean, if you look at the footage of his home before it was bombed, very simple, very humble. His children, none of them, he has 6 children, none of them have businesses. They're all, from decades ago, since his kids were young, he forbade them from doing business, not because he's against the private sector, but he said that my family should not be involved in any business. So all of them are either academics or they are professors at seminaries, but none of them are involved in business. So that is one element of his personality. He was fluent in four languages: Persian, Azeri, because Khamenei is in Iranian Azerbaijan. Like Marand is Marandi. Marand is another city in Azerbaijan near Tabriz. Arabic, and he's a man of literature. He was a very, very eloquent speaker in Persian. He knows a great deal about Persian literature. The same is with Arabic literature and Azeri literature. The most famous Azeri poet in the last few hundred years was his very close friend, Shahriyar. And you may be surprised to know that he knew English and he read in English. He would read political journals, but he also read novels. And one of his favorite, if not his most favorite, I think it was his favorite novel, but I may be wrong, that he read in English is a French novel, Les Miserables, the Miserables by Victor Hugo. And so he was an intellectual, but he was also an extraordinary strategist. And that is what has made the Americans and the Israeli regimes so outraged, because he was the person who ordered the industry of the drone industry and the missile industry in Iran to be developed, and indigenous technology was used, and the underground cities to be made. And so the underground drone and missile cities are protected from airstrikes, and the factories that produce them are underground as well. And so the Trump regime and the Netanyahu regime, in their outrage and frustration, they are bombing cities and carpet bombing. They carpet bomb Tehran. And we're all waiting for them to bomb us. No one knows who's next and where is next and who's the target. So they just, I posted, I think it was yesterday, I'm not quite sure, maybe it was the day before yesterday, a clip of carpet bombing in Tehran. Today I posted another clip of carpet bombing in another city. But these are just examples. They're doing it regularly. Just 2-3 hours ago, they carried out very heavy strikes in civilian neighborhoods in this part of Tehran, where I am right now. And killing, of course, men, women, children. Doesn't matter to them. Roughly 1/3 of the people who've been killed so far are children. And They've bombed hospitals. They've bombed an IVF, at least one IVF clinic that I know of. They bombed the Red Crescent Society main building. They bombed the one of the buildings in one of the provinces. They bombed the National Emergency Center, like for hospitals and first responders. Just like during those 2 days of deadly riots when they carried out an armed insurrection, if you recall, they were destroying ambulances and fire trucks, and in order to in order to prevent the fires from going out and from people from being rescued. But I also think back then they were probably doing it for now too, so that Iran would have a shortage of these vehicles, because it was very strange how systematically they are destroying all the ambulances and fire engines across the country. But in any case, they've. I was at Iranian television. I think it was 3 nights ago, and I usually don't go on TV because I don't want to be a public figure or anything in Iran. I rarely go, maybe once every few months on a program on one channel or another. And but since it's war, I said I'll go. And I was invited at 9 p.m. to go on the news channel. And when I got there, I knew where the news channel was. I'd been there a couple of times before. And I saw that the building was in ruins, or in partial ruins. And they said, no, the studio's moved to another building. It was bombed the night before. So I went to the other building and did the interview, and at 12 p.m. it finished, and I drove back home, and they bombed the Iranian radio and television again. So, and of course, Western journalists don't care. Not even reported in the West. Just like Palestinian journalists or Lebanese journalists that are being slaughtered, Iranian journalists and Yemeni journalists. And on one occasion, I don't recall if it was Americans or the Israelis that bombed a newspaper and killed tens of journalists in Yemen. So this is the state of affairs that we are facing now. The Trump regime and the Netanyahu regime are slaughtering. And of course, it's expected when the Epstein class rapes and kills girls. Why shouldn't they bomb Iranian girls? It's to be expected.
Exactly. One of the things that Donald Trump just said recently, which should give everyone pause, is he's making it very clear that this is going to be a never-ending war. At least that's how I took it. He said Trump, or actually I retreated this, but he said there will be no deal with Iran except unconditional surrender. After that, and the selection of a great and acceptable leader, we and many of our wonderful and very brave allies and partners will work tirelessly to bring Iran back from the brink of destruction, making it economically bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Iran will have a great future. Make Iran great again. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald Trump. So one of the things that stood out to me here, notice that he used that framing, work tirelessly again. That's the same framing that, of course, Kamala Harris used under the Biden administration, that they were working tirelessly for a ceasefire. And then also he said that he basically is saying that this is going to be another never ending war when he says that Iran has to surrender and he won't accept anything else. So it kind of reminds me of something that Julian Assange said. Julian Assange, he said that the goal is not necessarily to win with these wars. The goal is to continue to basically funnel money or launder money, make money for the military industrial complex, etc., and to cause like destruction.
The goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
So it just goes to show you here could be a potentially another Afghanistan or another Iran. And I want to get your take on that, this demand from Donald Trump that Iran has to surrender.
Well, no one in Iran uh, will take any of this seriously, and Iran will continue to fight. And the Iranian people are very united, and they're steadfast. And we've seen that. They're an extraordinary people. And I don't say it because I'm an Iranian. I told you, these people are on the streets at night under missile fire, women, men, and they don't budge. There's a thing about this country, this generation, and I've spoken to you before about their, the civilization, but also the religious values, and in particular uh, their their view on supporting the oppressed. That's why they support the Palestinians, the Cubans, the Venezuelans, the Southern Africans during the apartheid era. And that's why they're steadfast against the United States. They are, in this sense, they an axis of evil, the axis of evil that the United States has declared, are the only force that stands up against evil. They are the only force that is steadfast in standing up against real evil. The axis of evil, or in reality, the axis of resistance to evil, is not going to bow to empire. It's not going to happen. And I have no doubt that the United States, the regime in Washington, is going to have to end this war at some point after facing a strategic failure. The Iranians are determined to impose this upon the United States. And already it's not going well. They were bragging that it's going to be over very swiftly. It's been almost a week now. In a few hours, it'll be a full week. And the Iranians are striking hard across the board. The price of oil is going up. The price of gas has gone up even further than oil. And there's nothing that Trump can do about it. So he can. And we have to remember what the Trump regime did to another member of the axis of resistance. They were supposed to destroy Yemen. And remember all the things that the Secretary of War said and all the things that Trump said for 7 weeks. They were destroying Ansarullah, or what they call the Houthis. They were destroying Yemen, bringing them to their knees. They're begging for a deal. Then after 7 weeks, Trump said they capitulated and he walked away. And they didn't. They won. He lost. But this is going to be something much greater at a time when the global economy is at the brink of catastrophe. And if this war escalates, I have no doubt that the price of oil will go far more than $150 a barrel. It'll go well above $200 a barrel. And that, I think, will bring about an economic collapse. And then the MAGA people in the United States, who have no problem with Epstein apparently nowadays, and they have no problem with endless wars, and they have no problem with any of the contradictions of Trump, when they start losing their jobs and the price of energy goes through the roof, they'll be the first to seek out those who caused that for them. So, these are dark days. They're murdering our women and children. They're murdering, they're maiming people for life. They're destroying people's lives. They're bombing their homes. They're bombing their places of work. They bombed a pharmaceutical factory in Tehran. This is who they are, and this is who we're dealing with. And those who are cheerleading, like Fox News, they all have blood on their hands. But they will fail. There's no doubt that they will fail. And after they fail, Sabrina, I don't even think that when they fail, some of these regimes will still be in power. They're proxies in the region. But after they fail, those proxies, if they still stand, they're going to have to behave in a very different manner. Iran will no longer allow any of its neighbors to host U.S. bases and to be proxies to a foreign power to threaten Iran. That era is over. So these are dark days, but I'm optimistic. Whether people like me survive or not is irrelevant. I'm optimistic that the Iranian people will succeed. And Iran and the people of Iran are fighting for the entire global majority, including people in the West. This Epstein class must be defeated, and Iranians will be steadfast. General Soleimani said famously that we're the nation of Imam Hussein. If the US government was smart, they would have researched this and to see what he meant. If they had understood what General Soleimani meant, they probably would never have initiated conflict with Iran. They're messing with the wrong people.
Yeah, and I think that Donald Trump is finding that out the hard way. I don't think they expected Iran to hit back as hard as it has, and I've been telling people that Iran that Iran can hit back even harder. So I think
Sabrina, this is one of the interesting things. People like yourself, people like me, and others, we've basically been saying this for a long time. Yet when the war started, Trump famously said he was surprised that the Iranians were attacking U.S. assets in the Persian Gulf. That shows that the people around him are either utterly ignorant or they're Zionists and they're hiding the reality from him so that he will do it anyway, to make sure that he does carry out this war. Otherwise, it was not surprising what Iran did. It was to be expected. I think we discussed this scenario together on your show before. This is what's happening right now is exactly what we were saying would happen before. But then the president of the United States, who's supposed to organize this and who's been spending weeks bringing all these weapons and jets to the region, spending billions of dollars just getting that equipment here, he didn't know how Iran would respond. That's, I think, quite stunning.
Exactly. And speaking of that, one of the things that's made a lot of people in the West very angry was the attack on the girls' school. But it has also just been reported, shout out to Drop Site News for this one, bringing this in, that apparently there was just another school that was attacked. Drop Site News said U.S. Israeli missiles have hit an elementary school in Tehran, the fourth school in 6 days. Foreign Ministry spokesman Ismail Baghi shared a video that shows Shahid Hamdani Elementary School before and after the strike. A casualty toll was not immediately available. It is the fourth school hit in Iran since the war began. So here we go. Here's another school that apparently was hit on Friday. We can't show the actual strike here on YouTube. But this is something that has a lot of people in the West, Professor Marandi, are really angry. Even friends of mine who weren't sure how they felt about Iran, who were sympathetic towards Gaza, but iffy on Iran, they're starting to say to me that, Sabrina, I'm starting to see the same things that we saw happen in Gaza, attacking the schools, attacking the hospitals. And one of my friends told me that this time it stings a little bit differently because we know that the U.S. is also doing these attacks, right? It's not just Israel or the U.S. just giving the weapons to Israel. Corporate media tried to lie and say that it was Iran that struck the school. And this brought me back to, the earlier days with the Russia-Ukraine war, when corporate media said Russia blew up its own bridge, Russia blew up its own pipeline. And I was like, you guys really think Russia would bomb its own pipeline? Like, this is where common sense is supposed to kick in. But it didn't work this time. And it caused a lot of people and other media people to push back on Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump and ask them what happened with that school. Pete Hegseth put up a map, which the map basically exposed that the school was right there. So again, you got people in these positions that don't even know what they're doing. But what has been the sentiment from everyone in Iran about the girls' school, like these schools that are being attacked?
The girls' school was intentionally targeted. No one believes that it was an accident. You can find it on Google Map. There is not a chance and it was on the first day when the first strikes are the most well-prepared strikes. It's in subsequent days that you have to find targets and things change and there's movement on the ground. But on the first day, you know exactly what you want to do. That's the first punch. So we don't believe that. Just like when they downed the Iranian airliner, the United States, I mean, people who support Palestinians and don't support Iran, it's because of the racist narrative on Iran that has existed for decades. That's it, basically. And if it wasn't for Iran, Palestine would have been finished by now. It's only Iran that supports the Palestinians. No one else supports Palestine. That's why Iran is being bombed today. And all the narrative on Iran after Gaza, these people should have woken up to reality that anything that the Western media says is nonsense. So if they haven't woken up by now, I don't know what's going to wake them up. But when the school was bombed, this was day one. Almost 170 children were killed. And then, as you rightly pointed out, they tried to blame Iran. What does that remind me of? You mentioned Russia. It also reminds me of the first hospital in Gaza, which they bombed. That's right. And then Western media started, and the Israelis and then Western media started saying that the Palestinians did it themselves. And then the second hospital, they said there were tunnels. And then there was the third hospital, and the fourth hospital, and the fifth hospitals, and six and seven. And then the Western media saw that they were hitting all the hospitals and destroying them. So they began to just look away. Let's not talk about hospitals. And it got so bad that if you recall, in one hospital, they went in, pulled the plugs on the incubators, and killed all the infants. Yeah. And they looked away. So Western media, when they speak about Iran's government, when they speak about Iran and terrorism, or human rights, or whatever else, whatever other nonsense they say about Iran, and they have been saying for the last 47 years, they should throw that all out the window. In fact, I mean, there are no really good books on Iran that I know of in English, but there's a pretty decent book. I don't agree with everything in it, but a pretty decent book that's rather old, written by Flint and Hilary Leverett. It's called Going to Tehran. I would advise those who are interested to read this book. They both worked in the White House. Flint Leverett was the head of the Middle East in the National Security Council, so he's no opposition figure or leftist or anything like that. And Hillary, his wife, she was the head of the Persian Gulf in the National Security Council. She worked for him. That's how they met and married. And they wrote this book, and she's Jewish. He's Catholic. And they wrote this very good book. Very decent people. Very, very good people. Very knowledgeable people. And I think it's a book for those people who are so skeptical about Iran, for them to read and rethink Iran. If Iran is so bad, why is it that only Iran is supporting the Palestinian people? If Iran is so bad, why is it that it's only Iran that's opposing the genocidal strikes in Lebanon? If Iran is so bad, why is it that only Iran supported the people of Yemen during the 7 years of genocidal attacks that the West supported when the Saudis and the Emiratis were carrying out a genocidal war against the people of Yemen? So I think when it comes to morality, it's the Iranians who are at the top of the list. And I'm afraid if I'm disappointing anyone or upsetting anyone, that's just how I feel about it. Iran is the shining star of humanity, and today it is the Iranian people. And it's sort of really, in my opinion, racist to say that all these people who are going on the streets, whether it was after the riots, the protests against the riots, or on the anniversary of the revolution that you recall just a few weeks ago, or on every night now under missile fire, all these people are idiots. They're fools. They support an evil regime that does all these nasty things that the West does. Shouldn't some of these people who think so negatively about Iran think that to themselves, well, why is it that so many of these people who are all educated, they've all gone to school and university, many of them are professors, scientists, thinkers, they're innovative. Why are they going to the streets? Because they support evil? I think they should rethink, especially since the Iranians know exactly, they hear the amount of negativity that Iranians hear about their own the Islamic Republic is much greater than anything positive they hear. Because we've discussed this before, there's a Persian language media empire funded by Western intelligence agencies that's unlike any other. There's nothing like it for the Russians or the Chinese or anyone else. Hundreds of TV channels, tens of thousands of Iranians are employed by the West. Tens of thousands. 4,000 of them are just in Albania. The MBK terror organization has one camp there with 3 to 4,000 people who are just what do you call them? Trolls. They're internet trolls. And they have all these troll farms, and they have hundreds of TV channels and media outlets and so on. So the Iranians are always hearing disinformation about what's going on in Persian. Right now, as we speak, all these media channels are saying that the regime, as they like to call it, is collapsing, all sorts of disinformation. But the people still go to the streets. They're steadfast. They stand their ground under missile fire, and they say we won't forsake the Palestinian people. Even though Arabic media, Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya and all the Qatar and Saudi and the the Turkish regime, the Erdogan regime, all of them, their media tells the Palestinians and others that the Iranians are evil, that they're not your friend. They're constantly, so Arabic media is hostile, the oil and gas funded media, and the Western media is hostile. The Persian empire, this media empire is hostile, but still you see people on the streets in Iran and the armed forces standing its ground against this huge coalition. So it should make some people think maybe this narrative is not as credible as they claim it to be. So at the end of the day, what we're seeing is that the state is functioning despite all these atrocities. The armed forces are functioning despite all the atrocities, and people are standing their ground despite all the atrocities. And I think that is something unique, and that is why American officials should have done their research about the Islamic Republic and about Iranian culture and religious attitudes before, believing their own propaganda.
Yeah, I noticed some people in Western media were shocked. There was a video yesterday showing they said it was Iran using cluster ammunitions. They seem to be pretty shocked that Iran had that type of capability. And I had to remind people, Iran has been expecting this for a long time. So they've had years to prepare for this. The U.S. and Israel kind of went in with, it seems like to me, not a real plan. Donald Trump seems to be just winging it as he goes. And that brings me to this issue of the ground troops. The foreign minister of Iran, when questioned recently about the U.S. using ground troops, Israel and the CIA are looking at using Kurdish troops to go in on the ground. That has failed, obviously, before in the past in Syria and Afghanistan, but they are looking at doing that yet again. He said that we are ready. And I think you could just feel like the sting of that, because again, Iran has been preparing for this for so long. They knew at some point the U.S. and Israel were going to attack. And it just made me think, and I have to ask the question, why would people want to know, when I talked about this the other night, people want to know why would some of the Kurdish troops who, from what I understand, are stationed along the border of Iraq and Iran, why would they say yes to something like this again? Why would they go in and start what would be like a civil war?
Because these are mercenaries, just like those tens of thousands of Iranians who are on the payroll. They're on the payroll, and these are terrorists, but they're funded by the West, just like the other Kurdish terrorists in Syria. And the local government in northern Iraq, the Kurdish government, they are very close to Mossad and the CIA. This does not reflect upon ordinary people, by the way. I mean, just like in Turkey, while Erdogan is, sending cheap Baku oil to Netanyahu during this whole genocide, and as he's assisting the United States through NATO with AWACS allowing them to gather information on Iran, that doesn't mean ordinary Turks support these policies. And the same is true with Arab populations. But these are almost all dictatorships. And so we shouldn't have any expectations. But if they try to make a move, there's no doubt that they will be crushed. And the Iranians have warned the Barzani family dictatorship in Erbil in northern Iraq that they will destroy everything that he has. And the Iraqi resistance will take Erbil. So that local Kurdish government will come to an end if they move in the wrong direction. They have no capability. So the smart thing for them to do is to stop being so obedient to the United States and take a look at what's happening to the Persian Gulf family dictatorships and learn a lesson. Iran wants stability. Iran doesn't, Sabrina, Iran doesn't want war. We are the victims, just like in the 12-Day War, just like in Saddam Hussein's war. The United States has initiated 3 wars against us. When Saddam Hussein invaded Iran, they supported him, and then the West gave him chemical weapons. But during the final months of the war, since things were bad for Saddam, the US got directly involved. They came into the Persian Gulf, started attacking Iranian ships, naval ships, oil installations, and they downed an airliner with 291 people, all of whom were murdered. An Iranian plane that was flying from Bandar Abbas to Dubai. The second time was the 12-Day War, where during negotiations they secretly conspired to attack Iran with a blitzkrieg attack. And the third was this time. It's not Iran. They say Iran exports terrorism. Hezbollah is not terrorism. Hezbollah was created when the Israeli regime invaded Lebanon and took the capital. It was created at that time as a resistance group, and they expelled the Israeli regime. The United States supports ISIS and Al-Qaeda. We now know this. Trump himself just recently said he put this Jolani, Al-Qaeda terrorist, former ISIS bomb maker, bomb planter in Iraqi cities, the president of Syria. So when it comes to terrorism, when it comes to human rights, I mean, let's look at what they've done to our entire region, from Libya. And the final point that I wanted to make was the reason why they thought that this would be a walk in the park is because they're racist. They think that we can't be sophisticated, that we're not smart, that we are not like them. No, we're smart. We know exactly how to deal with them, despite all the sanctions, despite all the terrorism, despite all the wars that they've imposed upon us. We've been able to stand up against this entire coalition. And that shows that their racist mentality and their arrogance is one major reason why they fail.
I agree. I saw you went back on Piers Morgan again, and I thought it was kind of funny, the clip that I saw where he was asking you about free speech in Iran. I just wanted to laugh because it's hilarious. I'm like, you live in a country right now that is arresting people for what they post on social media. So it's I don't know if everyone knows, but the censorship level in the UK is insane post October 7th.
Criticize your regime then. Okay, well, criticize your regime then. If you've got such freedom of speech, criticize your regime right now. Go on.
Pierce.
Yeah, you can't, can you? Pierce, you're full of hot air. You remind me of Comical Ali in the Iraq War, who kept just talking complete nonsense about his ruling, about his regime and ruler.
The problem is, I don't know how to deal with
can you?
Be quiet for a second and let me respond.
Well, criticize your regime. Go on.
I know you're afraid. Be quiet. Let me respond.
I'm not afraid of anything.
Don't be so afraid. In Iran, we talk against the government, against policies day and night. You sit in a taxi, they're criticizing. You're on campus, they criticize.
I wanted you to criticize your regime right now.
No, I'm not going to. When you give me 5 minutes.
No, you're not going to, are you? Because you're a coward. And you're a paid up stooge of the regime. And you know if you do criticize them, they'll take you off the airwaves. Your job is to get on the airwaves and promote the regime. That's why you can't criticize them.
Yeah.
And if you could criticize them, you would.
Are you going to let me talk, or are you just too cowardly to let me talk? You're afraid of me.
I asked you a question. You wouldn't do it.
You're a coward.
You can't do it, can you?
You're a coward. I'm not going
the coward.
to criticize.
I can criticize my regime. I can tell you I think Prime Minister Starmer has been a complete dud.
My country.
What are you going to say about your regime?
My country is under airstrikes from your criminal regime, your Epstein regime. My country, the people in my city are being slaughtered by your garbage regime, and you want me to sit here?
The people in your country were slaughtered by your regime, weren't they? Only a few weeks ago, up to 30,000 of your people were slaughtered by your regime, weren't they?
Okay, Pierce, forget it. If you don't want me to talk, I'll just sit down. You do the talking. You don't know anything about Iran, and you just talk and talk and talk, and you're afraid of me saying a single sentence. Iran is being bombed by your regime. Our children are being slaughtered. As we speak, your regime is bombing my country. And your regime sent in intelligence, the Israeli Mossad, the CIA, according to the former head of the CIA, according to the Mossad itself, they sent in people to infiltrate. According to Channel 14 of Israeli TV, which is close to Netanyahu, they brought in weapons that killed hundreds of police officers and volunteers on the streets. So the 3,117 people who were killed, and all of them have their ID and information. They're well known. If you have any extra names, give them to me and let's see what your evidence is. All of those people are recognized. And wait a moment. Wait a moment. And if there was one police officer killed in your country, what would the reaction be? Some young woman was turning to the right. They shot her in the face. Here they killed 200 police officers and well over 100 volunteers on the streets. And you call that peaceful protest, but you ignore the millions of people on the streets as we speak in Tehran right now who are supporting the government.
Let me tell you.
And
let me respond. I can tell you.
I wanted to bring something for you to see, but forget it. Just one final sentence. For 47 years, your government, your regime, your media has been saying Iran is unpopular. Iran is about to fall. The regime is collapsing. And it never happened. And do you know what? That is exactly the same thing that your media and your governments would say about Mossadegh. When he was in power, they were saying he's evil, he's criminal, he's corrupt. Go and look at the New York Times, the Washington Post. It's always the same. Your problem is that we are independent and that we do not accept the Epstein class that rapes and murders little kids. We don't accept them murdering our kids. We will not allow your regime to kill our kids and get away with it.
And so it was hilarious to me. I was like, who is he talking to?
But don't watch the clip. Watch the whole 18 minutes. Because that clip is then after the best part comes after that. And at the end, I say, okay, I invite you to Tehran, and I'll do a live debate with you on Press TV so that all of the Iranian people can watch. And he refused.
Of course. He's now being sued by an Israeli asset. I don't know if you know about that.
Sorry?
He's now being sued by an Israeli asset. Did you know about that?
Yes. Well, the Israelis, if you don't bark for them, that's unacceptable. That's how they demand total obedience. So if anyone, when I haven't been invited on any of the mainstream media outlets for a very long time, except for Channel 4 News and once BBC. But on those like in the past when they would invite me very rarely, and I'd speak about Gaza or Iran and Lebanon, I'd say the genocide in Gaza. Immediately the host would say, whether it's Sky News or the BBC or whatever, they would say, no, this is not a genocide, or this has not been proven, or international bodies have not confirmed such an accusation. That's the first thing they'd say. And that's because they are so afraid of the Epstein class. Whether it's the BBC or whether it's Sky News or anyone else, it doesn't make a difference. You have to toe the line. And so in his case, he's obviously working within the framework of Western interests. His position, what he does, both in the previous war, the 12-day war, and when the Israelis were bombing Beirut, and I was in Beirut during the Lebanese war, he spoke with me then and during the 12-day war and this time. In all three cases, his objective was demonizing Iran and Lebanon. Why? In order to legitimize the death and destruction. When I demonize you and I say, well, Sabrina's she's this and she's that and she's evil, then even things that are illegitimate, like killing or maiming you or attacking you, for some people they say, well, she deserved it. You know what I mean? When you demonize someone and you destroy their image and reputation, then you can do bad things and get away with it. So people like him are tools of the Israeli regime, of the Trump regime. They're tools in the sense that they prepare the grounds for death and destruction. Even those, and we discussed this before, I think, even those on the left, well, supposed left or like the main left, they take war like this way. The Venezuelan regime is evil, but war is not a good idea. No, your government is evil for contemplating war. And Venezuela has a government, and it's affairs. It's none of your business whether that government is good or not. But whatever that government is, it's better than your government, because that government doesn't rape and murder and plunder across the world. But because they want to remain relevant in the mainstream, to be invited on TV and to write articles and in major journals and to have tenure and to be in, so they'll say, it's not a good idea, but they're bad news. And this is basically, and Piers Morgan, his duty, his responsibility. I mean, if he doesn't do this, he'll lose his show. But what he does is quite stunning. The United States wages war against Iran, and he starts attacking Iran and how evil Iran is and how they're murdering women day and night, slaughtering people. And he doesn't care about the school children. And on the day when the school children were murdered, there was another atrocity that didn't get into the news because the elementary school thing was so horrific. Another group of girls were slaughtered in the province of Fars on the first day when they bombed their gymnasium. And a lot of young girls volleyball, and almost 20 of them almost all of them were killed. And I think there were almost 20 of them. I don't know the exact numbers because there's so many atrocities happening. You just can't keep up. But the point is that Piers Morgan doesn't care about these girls. He doesn't care about anyone. What he wants to do is prepare the grounds for death and destruction. He has no principle. He's bound to this class, to this oligarchy. He may be very rich himself. He may not even need them. He could just step aside and go and retire somewhere and be quiet. But no, he chooses to continue. And I'm sure these people try to justify by what they do by trying to believe their nonsense. But yesterday was the third time I invited him to Iran. Every time, he would just insult me in response. In response, he would insult me. Why? Because of course he doesn't want to see Iran. First of all, I'm sure if he comes to Iran, when he goes back, he'll say the same thing, because these people, he'll have a tough time squaring the circle. But these people don't change. But I invited him anyway, and he said, "Allow me to be on your TV." And I just on my own initiative said, "Okay, I'll do that," even though I have no position in government. So last night, I contacted the head of Press TV and said, "Look, I invited him without letting you know." And he said, "Sure." And he tweeted this out, and I retweeted him, saying, "Yes, if he comes to Iran, you can have hours of debate with Marandi on Press TV live." His show is recorded, by the way. Of course they won't do it.
Interesting. Well, Professor Marandi, please be safe and take care of yourself. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's always a great pleasure. And thank you for all the excellent work that you do. It's quite heroic.
Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.